Okay, now I'd like to briefly discuss the Four Knights game. The Four Knights game starts off by e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. You've probably seen this, we've seen this before. And then white plays knight c3. And if you're playing black, sometimes you go, what should I really play? Well, a play normally continues in the four knights defense, which is the move knight to f6. And then play would normally continue in the symmetrical variation, which is bishop to b5. The other option, which I'm going to explore, is actually d4. But let's look at bishop b5. It's the most common move after black plays knight f6, and then the reason it gets its name, the symmetrical variation, is black will play the similar or same move as white. So bishop to b4 by black, then d3, d6, castle kingside. We're pretty much at the end of the symmetrical variation. Play could typically continue bishop g5, bishop takes c3, b takes c3. The queen goes to e7 with the idea of black bringing the knight to here, where the knight can attack the bishop here. That's what we'll see. White plays rook to e1, defending the pawn on e4, so it can make the d4 push. And then black plays knight d8, like I mentioned before, d4, and then knight to e6. So that's some typical play in the symmetrical variation. So let's back up. Like I mentioned before, what's the other move that white can play besides bishop to b5 is d4. This is actually called the Scotch variation of the four knights, or the Scotch four knights, if white plays d4. And it looks pretty much like a Scotch game, which I covered in my last video. Play would typically continue e takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to b4 pinning the knight, and then knight takes c6, b takes c6, bishop to d3, protecting this pawn here. Black will play d5. White is now almost compelled to liquidate the pawn. So e takes d5, c takes d5. Both sides will castle kingside. So that is the Scotch four knights. So if you want a game that looks pretty much like the Scotch game, you can play that. So what are the alternatives? Or maybe I should back up and say the Four Knights game here is pretty much known as it's pretty much solid for black, but it's also a very drawish type game. So what can black do to avoid the sort of the symmetrical game? Even though it's solid, you tell yourself, I want a better game out of this. So you're saying I don't want to go into the symmetrical variation or play the Scotch four knights. Well, what you could do, instead of playing knight to f6 on your third move as black, you could play a three knights. Technically, this position right here is known as the three knights game, and you can go for a move besides f6. And one of those, probably the most promising move here, is playing g6. After black plays g6, play would probably continue in the three knights game now, not the four knights, because you're trying to get a game that's not symmetrical. Would be d4 by white, then e takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to g7, threatening to win the knight. White will play bishop to e3, defending the knight. d6. You can also play knight to f6. I sort of like d6. queen to d2, actually preparing to castle queenside. Looks like most of the variations for the 3 and 4 knights defense, black will castle to the king side. So then knight f6, and now we've seen this type of, if you're going to castle opposite, you know, the game plan of running these pawns down is pretty typical. So each side will attack on the opposite wing, and to prepare the castling, white will play f3 to prevent the knight from coming here. Also, it can prepare the g4 move, and then black will castle king side, white will castle queen side, and we'll probably have a pretty interesting game. So if you're black and you want to play something that doesn't lead to a draw, obviously this is going to be an exciting game. Me myself is playing black. I think in these type of positions, I don't tend to fare very well, but I tend to be able to, if I'm playing white in this type of position, I tend to do pretty good. So let's just back up. So I said, okay, so I just covered g6. The other type of thing you could try, though it's in the 4 knights, let's say you didn't play g6 and you went for knight f6 and then bishop to b5, and you're telling yourself, oh, I really don't want to have a symmetrical game by playing bishop to b4, just like in the symmetrical game. I want to play something else. You could play what's called the Rubinstein variation, and play this move. Whoops. You could play knight to d4. Sorry about that. This is the Rubinstein. Now, if you're playing white and you want to avoid any complications, what I recommend in the Rubinstein is playing pretty much straightforward, because when you look at this, white is probably eyeing saying, wow, black left that pawn for free, but you're not going to get it in the end. If you want to play straightforward, I'd actually recommend playing knight takes d4, e takes d4, and then as white push e5, black will take on c3, you take on e6, the queen takes, you take back with the d pawn, the queen will come to e5 check. It looks like maybe you're going to win the bishop, but then you just play queen to e2. It probably looks like the queens are going to get exchanged off. So that's the Rubinstein variation, or one of the lines. You could also play the Rubinstein, since this is the Rubinstein is knight to d4. If white decided to take the pawn on e5, here's a continuation you should play as black. You should play queen to e7. Obviously now you're attacking the knight, and you're hitting this e4 pawn again. So you can look at some tactical themes, but I would say the best move for white is just to realize you're going to end up losing the e4 pawn. There are moves where you could actually play f4, but black is still going to win the e4 pawn, and personally, if you play f4, your king's going to end up moving and not get the castle. So I say avoid that and play as white, and play knight f3, and then black will play knight takes b5. You play knight takes b5. Actually, now you're threatening to take this pawn here or check and win the rook in the corner, but then the queen will take with check. So, and then queen to e2. So there you go. That is the basic 4 knights / 3 knights game.